HOD considered, and that's what originally prompted Callie and myself to ask for that, to request that we go through this process. The process, as we all know, has been a long one where we've tried to make sure that we're engaged with the community throughout. And the first part of that is the advisory committee, the folks that we're meeting with tonight, was one of the first. Actually, we had an organizing meeting was the first thing we did. Then we had and asked for people who wanted to be part of an advisory committee. That was put together, and then that advisory committee has been the core, if you will, day-to-day working group for the Hollin Hills HOD, and whether or not we should or shouldn't actually set one up and put one together. So we've kind of come a full 360 around here. So we started with the advisory committee, helped to define what the HOD might look at like, and what things it should consider. And now we're back here with the advisory committee to present the kind of the final results. Not only the results of the work to define what the HOD would be and how, and the process that would work, the language and the information that would indicate the kind of process that would follow for managing or having the HOD, the particular the general criteria that we would expect the Architecture Review Board to use as part of that process. That all came together in the package, which the advisory committee also looked at to support bringing out to all of you as part of a poll. I mean, not only to you, but all of me to the community as part of a poll. We now have the poll results, which indicate, I would say fairly significantly, that anywhere from 63 to 80%, depending upon how you want to look at the numbers, the community was supportive of moving forward with an HOD. So for me, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to make sure that the advisory committee has a chance to consider the poll information that was presented. If they have questions about it, or if there's issues or concerns about it, this is really the opportunity to kind of dig into a little bit of that. If there's questions or issues that come up after tonight, that's perfectly fine too. But I wanted to give the first opportunity to the folks who have frankly worked the hardest throughout this process, which is the advisory committee members. So I'm here to listen. I'm here to, frankly, just to make sure that there's not some part of the process or not some kind of concern that I either wasn't aware of or folks wanted to make sure others were aware of. And as at the outcome of this meeting, I would look to consider the poll results and all the information that's been put together. If anybody else has anything else that they want to share with me in the next week or two, I'd be happy to consider that. And then I would look forward to probably moving forward with this proposal unless I hear otherwise. Again, the advisory committee has been involved throughout. The presentation tonight seems to indicate fairly clearly that the community is interested and wants to move forward with an HOD. And my interest tonight is just to make sure that I haven't missed something, and if there's something else that I need to be aware of, you all will do that, as well as to give ultimately people in the community an opportunity to take a look at this over the next week or two. And if they have something else that they want to make sure that I'm aware of or share, I'd welcome that as well. But based upon where we are today and the results, it appears that we will be moving forward with setting up Hollin Hills Historic Overlay District, and we'll look forward to any of your comments or concerns about why this should or shouldn't be done based upon really the process we followed and ultimately the culmination of the poll results that we're seeing today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Stork. Would you like this opportunity to open it up to the work group for questions? The next slide I have would be next steps moving forward. Your discussion on that, if we want to move forward on that, or we want to have work group questions now.
Can I just say something? This is Barbara Ward.
Hold on one second, Barbara. Supervisor Stork, would you like to open up for questions now to the work group?
Yes, we should start with the work group, obviously give them plenty of opportunity. And then if we have time after that, then of course I'm happy to hear from the community. And if I need to have additional meetings with groups of community members, I'm happy to do that. As everybody knows, and I probably should have said this earlier, I have had for decades now, as whether representing you on the school board or now representing the supervisor, I've had community office hours. In this case, as supervisor, I have them traditionally every Thursday from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. And then the second Saturday of the month, I also have community office hours. And the second Saturday of the month just happens to be this coming Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So those are other opportunities for people to come and talk with me or meet with me about this or frankly any other matter. It's although I always ask people to call and preferably let my staff know so they can schedule it. It's one way of making sure that I have at least 20 to 30 minutes to speak with you. But the door is always open, and if we don't have much time to talk, then we'll reschedule to talk further. But yeah, this would be fine to proceed with comments and questions from the advisory committee.
Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
Supervisor Stork, I want to first of all, thank you for allowing us to have this survey. But before we go any further, I want to make sure that you know what an outstanding job the people from the employees of Fairfax County have done in working with us over the last 2.5 years. In particular, Laura has just been the model of professionalism and a great deal of patience in times where nerves were frayed and tension was high. And I think all of us, no matter where we stand on this, want to make sure that you know that these Fairfax County employees have done a stellar job.
Thank you, and I absolutely share that opinion, and I've experienced that same professionalism in my interactions, and in fact, Nick Reinhardt, who can't be with us tonight, who's been part of all your meetings, he's actually on vacation this week. I know he would share that, and I also appreciate everything that Nick has done throughout this process. So we have had a very professional, I think, respect for all of us throughout, for everybody involved, and Laura and her team have done really, I think, an extraordinary job of making sure that they represent the broadest perspective and not really leaning one way or the other, but trying to always be professional in the information they present.
I think that we would all be very interested in knowing what the timeline is going forward.
Maybe Laura can give us a little bit more information on that. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, if we're moving forward on this, these are the couple key dates to keep in mind. We would look for the board authorization and advertisement of the public hearings on January 25th, 2022. I believe that's sometime in the morning. I can send another email for when that's going to happen. That's not a public hearing. That's just the authorization and advertisement of the public hearings that would be coming. The staff report publication will be published 2 weeks before the Planning Commission hearing, which right now is scheduled to be February 8th. And then the Planning Commission public hearing anticipated would be on February 23rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. And then the Board of Supervisors meeting would be March 8th, 2022 at a time to be determined. Both of those meetings are public hearings for comment, public participation, opportunity to come and speak if you'd like. But the Planning Commission and board dates, those are the two public hearing dates moving forward.
Could you give us a little bit more background, like what happens at the presentation to the History Commission and the ARB and the Park Authority in February? Is that an open meeting? What's going to be presented to them then?
So one of the requirements is that we present to the History Commission and the ARB. The ARB will make a recommendation on the Historic Overlay District because it's a zoning case, and they will be overseeing the regulatory aspect of the Historic Overlay District. So we will be presenting very similar presentations that we've done in the work group in the past of the proposal, the boundary, the contributing, non-contributing properties, the design guidelines, and specifically, well, the History Commission and the ARB have been briefed on this through the last 3 or 4 years. So they're very familiar with this. The Park Authority Board, we need to go to the Park Authority Board because they own some property contained within the Historic Overlay District. And that will be, I think, a recommendation as well. The ARB and History Commission are both public meetings. I think the Park Authority Board is as well. But I will check on that.
And that meeting would be February 8th?
The History Commission is the first Wednesday of the month. The ARB is the second Thursday of the month, which I think is the 8th. Sorry, I haven't thought that for you. But I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to fit those in because of the staff report needs to be published, and but it will be, both of those will be in early February, the ARB and History Commission. And I think the Park Authority meets the second Wednesday of the month, but I will get those dates confirmed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there other questions from the work group? I can't see you if you're raising your hand, so you'll just have to unmute if you'd like to speak.
Once the Board of Supervisor rules, makes its decision, what happens after that?
Sure. So once the Board of Supervisors makes their decision, if they approve it, it would be enacted immediately the next day after. And then the next step would be to finalize the design guidelines, as the ARB has purview over the design guidelines. We're not anticipating they would change drastically from what would be put as draft form on the staff report, but there would be an opportunity to finesse them a little bit more if we needed some clarification. So that would be, if the hearing is March 8th, we're probably looking at April for the Architectural Review Board for the design guidelines only.
And once the ARB makes a decision on guidelines, what happens then?
As soon as we get building permits coming in within the property boundaries, they would be coming to the ARB for review.
Okay, and I'm going to be, let's assume that the Board of Supervisors on March 8th were to make a positive decision. Would you be, is the HOD, what would happen to somebody who comes to the building department on March 10th with a building plans, but there's no ARB guidelines? Do they just go through the regular process until there are ARB guidelines?
I'll have to double check with our county attorney on that. I know in the zoning ordinance, the ARB is required to adopt design guidelines. So I'm not sure if it comes into effect, after the design guidelines are adopted, but I will check and ask that question and clarify that.
That would be good to know.
Thank you. Yep.
But since we're adopting it, assuming that on March 8th, at that point in time, it would be, if again it's adopted at that time, it would be county ordinance, and there would need to be some sort of process. That would be my expectation. So, and I think the only issue is what the timing might be for the ARB to identify what those specific reviews would be. But again, assuming that the board adopts it on the 8th, that then becomes ordinance. There is now the Hollin Hills HOD, which has within it the kind of the requirements or the what's identified in the ordinance itself, what's identified in the motion itself that we would be considering.
I think the timing, it depends on how it moves forward and the complexity of the project, but the ARB, we probably wouldn't go to the first ARB meeting for a Hollin Hills item until the next month anyway, when the design guidelines are looked at. But like I said, I think it's a question I need to check with the county attorney, because if we have draft design guidelines in place, we might be able to facilitate that. I just need to check on that scenario specifically.
I agree. The county attorney needs to weigh in for all of our sake, but again, I would just say broadly speaking, when you pass an ordinance, we passed it and it's now, if you will, the law. And then what happens after that would be staff functions that they'd have to follow. But again, since this ties into, and the core of what we're approving, if this is approved on the 8th, would be what the ARB would set up as additional reviews. So I could see, well, there's going to be, until that's in place, there's not going to be clarity, and agree that we need to see what we can get from the county attorney. So regardless, as we go down this path, before those votes are taken, you would know what the consequence in terms of timing would be.
It would be helpful, Laura, if this presentation that you've put out could be posted on the HOD website so that people can go back to it and verify things as they go along.
That's the plan, Barbara. I do realize, though, I didn't start recording until Supervisor Stork was speaking. So I'm going to go back and do kind of a voiceover of the beginning of the PowerPoint, and we can get that posted.
That's
just
fine.
basically what I said tonight. Are there any more questions from the work group specifically? We still have a bunch of time, so I'm going to open it up to the public. Supervisor Stork, if that's okay.
That'd be fine. I'm sorry, but I have a bad cold, so I probably sound a little bit more vacant than usual. But so, and I'm happy to continue answering questions.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, last chance for the work group. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of open it up. For those in the attendee list, if you would please put a message in the chat and/or raise your hand if you would like me to call on you. We have about 50 people on the attendee list right now, and I do not want to unmute everybody at one time. So if you wouldn't mind putting in a chat a question you have, I will go ahead and unmute you. Okay, looks like we have a comment from Patrick Kelly. 1 second, Mr. Kelly. All right, Mr. Kelly, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to thank the HOD work group, both the Hollin Hills homeowners who were members of that study group, as well as the members of the History Commission and the ARB and county staff. I was a fly on the wall for most of the 13 or 14 meetings, and all of you, gave it your best. You studied the issue, provided wonderful comments. County staff, terrific work, top to bottom, and Supervisor Stork, your staff have been incredibly professional and diligent in following this path with that the majority of homeowners, as you have reported this evening, would like for our community. And we really believe that Hollin Hills will be a landmark, historic destination, a historic architectural treasure for generations to come. And we thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And again, absolutely, I would echo again how wonderful I think our staff has been. I think they've done a terrific job as well. Thank you.
I know that some people on the phone can't necessarily unmute themselves. What the code is, I haven't used WebEx. Sorry about that. Of what the code would be to unmute you on the phone. So I'm going to go through and ask the users on the phone, we have about 5 or 6 of them, if they would like to speak. If someone else wants to speak, once again, please put a comment in the chat, raise your hand, and or otherwise reach out to staff and we can unmute.
Laura, maybe a question for you is how can we, is this on our website so that people can go in right now and pull up the presentation that you just gave, or is there some other availability that they can access this?
I haven't posted it on the website yet, but I will do it early tomorrow. So it'll be ready.
Sometime after noon tomorrow, it all should be there for people to look at as well. Thank you.
Okay, I have a 703-765 number. I'm going to unmute you. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. All right, you are unmuted, 703-765. I can't see the last 4 numbers. I don't want to belabor this if we don't have comments. It's perfectly fine, or further opportunity for discussion. Let me go through the rest of the call-in and see if I can someone else. The 81857-998. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, give you a couple seconds to respond. All right, you've been unmuted.
Hi, I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last one I have on my list, I have 703-768. Go ahead and unmute you. Do you have any comments or concerns? Staff? I'm sorry. Sir? Anybody else have their hand up? Concerns, comments? You can feel free to reach out to Nick Reinhardt. I know Nick's off this week, but Supervisor Stork staff or myself, we're happy to answer the questions, provide some information on the poll. Once again, we'll get this PowerPoint up tomorrow by noon. I'll do a voiceover at the beginning as I realized I was not recording, but it started when Supervisor Stork was speaking, so that is all on recorded on the video. So I'll post a little bit of both. Anything else?
All right, just again, thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful evening. And if people want to speak with me, they clearly have opportunities to do that on my Thursday or Saturday hours, and I'm always happy to take a phone call, and if I'm not available, to call you back as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Laura. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Take care.